I know it's been a while since I uploaded a video. I've been very busy with my dental practice, and I haven't had a lot of time for other things. Thank you to those who've written me messages expressing concern and well wishes. Although I haven't been uploading videos, I still check on my channel almost every day, and I try to respond to questions and comments. One category of comments I receive is corrections on my use of phonetics terminology and phonetic transcription. First, I want to say I truly appreciate your comments and suggestions. Feedback helps me improve, and I appreciate the time people take to share their knowledge. But it occurs to me that some of you might be more comfortable considering my suggestions and recommendations for improvement if you know why I make boo-boos in terminology and transcription. Today's video will be about my academic background and how it influences the content of my videos. Let me tell you a little bit about my academic and professional background. Today I'm a practicing dentist, but many moons ago I was a student of language and linguistics. My undergraduate degree was in Spanish translating and interpreting, and naturally, during that time I was very focused on Spanish grammar and word choice. Later, I did a graduate program in structural Spanish language. This program looked at the structure and function of Spanish across different areas of linguistics and included courses in morphology, semantics, syntax, dialectology and sociolinguistics, phonetics, phonology, historical linguistics, and others. This gave me a foundation in each of these linguistics topics, as well as a deep dive into each of these subjects as they relate to the Spanish language. So, for example, while I'm not an expert in syntax as a universal component of human language, I do know Spanish grammar quite well. And the same applies to each of these topics. With regard to what was the main focus of this channel for a few years, while I'm not a specialist in phonetics and phonology as linguistic fields generally, and as they relate to all languages, I do have detailed knowledge of Spanish pronunciation, including the overarching structure of the Spanish sound system, the phonological rules governing the realization of each phoneme in any given phonetic context, and even the most widely recognized dialectal variations. So I know quite a lot about the topic, but I don't know as much about phonetics in general as someone with a degree in phonetics. Something else to understand is that my master's program was entirely in Spanish. Daily lectures, textbooks, exams, and term papers were all 100% in Spanish. In fact, my professor of phonetics and phonology was a native Spanish speaker who didn't speak English. Why would that matter? Well, my videos are mostly in English, but the terminology and transcription conventions I learned differ from those used in English. For example, in Spanish studies, the term plosives is oclusivas. I've gotten many comments and some criticism in the comment sections of some of my videos for saying that when teaching students how to think of these Spanish sounds, I prefer not to call them plosives, but occlusives or stops. At root, that preference comes from the fact that I learned phonetics in Spanish, and in Spanish they're called oclusivas. But there's more to it than that. In a general sense, the English word plosive refers to events with an explosive quality, a sudden release of pressure or a burst of air. I suspect we use the word plosive in English, because in English that's how we often pronounce these sounds. But that's not how they're pronounced in Spanish, and that's the point I wanted to get across in that video. It's less about whether this term is correct in English as a label for these Spanish sounds, and more a practical point about how these sounds are articulated in Spanish. As a side note, in Spanish the word plosivas can sometimes appear in less formal contexts, translations from English materials, or when Spanish speakers are discussing linguistics in a bilingual or international setting, where English terminology has influenced the discussion. Even so, oclusiva remains the preferred and most widely recognized term among native Spanish-speaking linguists. Another issue that arises because of my educational background is phonetic transcription. Although I didn't realize it at the time, and have only learned this from comments I receive on my videos, we didn't learn the International Phonetic Alphabet for transcription. Instead, we learned transcription systems specific to Spanish studies that were something like a simplified version of IPA. For example, instead of using this IPA symbol for the phoneme associated with the double L, our textbooks used the Greek lambda. Similarly, the phoneme associated with the CH sound was often written as C with an inverted circumflex, rather than this IPA representation. And the trilled R was often represented as R with a macron. As a student, I assumed this was the standard way to write these sounds, because this was standard for our textbooks and lectures. It wasn't until I started making YouTube videos and reading comments from viewers who had education in English phonetics or general phonetics that I realized there was a mismatch between what I'd learned and IPA. This is why you might notice mistakes in how I transcribe sounds. In early videos, I used symbols I'd learned in my grad program. And in later videos, I did my best to use IPA, but I know I've made mistakes. For those who followed this channel from the beginning, I hope you've noticed that I'm always working to improve. Your feedback is valuable to me, and if someone is sincere in how they give feedback, I try to take it into account. My goal with this channel is to help you improve your Spanish pronunciation and reduce your foreign accent in a way that's practical and effective. While I've yet to make a single perfect video free of any errors, I strive to ensure that each video provides useful and actionable suggestions to help you sound more native-like. My focus is on making concepts accessible and practical for learners, even if my terminology and transcription aren't always perfect. I view this channel as a collaborative journey where I continue to learn and improve alongside you, and I truly appreciate your feedback as part of the process. I offer sincere thanks to everyone who's watched my videos, and especially to those who've offered feedback or who've participated in other ways. Your engagement has meant a lot to me.